Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network. Liezel Lane joining us here for myteenlifecoach.com, and that's exactly what she does. But it's more than even being just a coach. She's a friend, she's a mom, she's done it all, and she's helping families and children and teenagers, adolescents to really adapt to the world today and teaching us as parents, the same. Welcome back to the show today, Liezel. How are you?
Thanks, Jill. Really good. You look really good too. Wow. Vacations have done you
I haven't had a
well.
chance to wash my hair. It happens only every couple of days with the kids, right? But yeah, I got a little tan going on. So I'm like, it's a hot day here in New York. And please introduce yourself to us. Thank you.
Of course, of course. Hey, everybody. My name is Liezel Lane. I'm a professional teen resilience coach. I am the founder and the CEO of myteenlifecoach.com. And I am also a faculty member for the Youth Coaching Institute. And of course, I would never be qualified for this if I weren't the mother of three teenage kids myself. So, I am very passionate about Gen Z and our upcoming generation, Gen Alpha, around how we help them prepare to become adults.
Yeah.
And yeah, you guys can always find us on myteenlifecoach.com. And for those of you who have me on Zoom, my phone number is on there, but it's 770-235-8202.
Got it. Well, it'd be so exciting to find out more. And I know we can reach out to you directly there. And for today's topic, what did you have in mind for us?
So it dawned on me this last week that we don't often talk about the whole thing around teenagers and ADHD. And I thought maybe today would be a really good time for that since, some of us have already started school, some of us are starting school like this coming week. So I wanted to highlight that because they're beginning to show that academic resilience coaching is really very, very effective for kids with ADHD. And you and I probably have, within 2 clicks of our lives, have people who have ADHD or ADD. And it's still a relatively new concept or thing that we are having to learn to work with and manage and understand as parents and as educators. So, as coaches, as a teen coach, what we do is we'll do academic resilience coaching with kids with ADHD, which is a slightly different approach. And, I'll tell you what, when I first came to this country 20 years ago, I didn't even know it existed. And so
Wow.
I thought, well, let me just dive in and see kind of what the historical timeline for it is. So I found some really interesting little knick-knack pointers. And then I thought we could talk about like what does that look like in the life of a teenager, and how does it fit in with how they work? Because it mostly works with deficits of executive functioning skills, right? And then how do we actually work with it for those who want to kind of delve into that a little bit more? So in our lives, all of us, like I said, we have some connection with somebody who has an attention deficit disorder, but it was never formally called that.
Yeah.
In 1902, believe it or not, I found out that it was called the abnormal defect of moral control in children.
Ah,
Crazy, right? That's in
yeah.
1902. And then for 50 years, there was almost an absence of any literature or writing or documentation about it out in the public. And finally, in 1968, the DSM, which is the manual that psychologists use to diagnose mental illness or mental behavioral issues, finally recognized this condition or this mental condition as hyperkinetic reaction in childhood. That was in the first edition, and only in 1980, sorry, they finally called it ADD with hyperactivity variations. And only in 1987 was it
Yep.
finally called attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And then, of course, the medicine kind of evolved as that timeline grew as well. So the most interesting part about that, Jill, is that it's not a new phenomenon, but it is more diagnosed, as you can see, because we've got more research, more parent awareness, more diagnostics, and there are more cases. Now, this is the curious part for me, and I'm not a scientist in this area, but I am curious because in all the reading and the research, it says that the most reliable connections with ADHD is through genetics. They don't have,
Really?
what I'm aware of, a lot of proof around environmental reasons for ADHD. So I don't know. I'm kind of like, I'm acting and I'm becoming a little bit more curious about if and when they might come across any environmental stuff. So I'm still learning myself in that particular area. But then I kind of thought about, well, some people say they have ADD, some people say they have ADHD.
It
What is
gets
the,
confusing. And how do you yeah, it does, right?
yeah,
Attention deficit disorder.
that's
Again,
right.
it's attention deficit hyper disorder. So,
That's right. So
so,
there's like these
ha,
two ways that it comes forward, right?
mm-hmm.
So here are the two key differences. And then there's a third one where both can be present as
Yep.
well. But I don't know what the formal name of that is. But so the ADD is let me try that again, predominantly inattentive presentation, right? So there you're going to see teenagers or kids who just cannot finish their tasks. They can't organize their tasks. They struggle to pay attention to details in particular. And then they struggle with following conversations or instructions. They're easily distracted and they struggle to create routine. So that's just the inattentive presentation. But when there's hyperactive impulsive that's added to that, then you're going to see that teenager forget a lot, talk a lot. So there's more of a restlessness to their behavior. They can't sit still, and there's a lot of impulsive stuff. So like you'll see them just grab things from people or just interrupt the conversation and sounds rude. Sometimes they'll speak at inappropriate times, and it looks like they don't have manners, but that's not true. They just, they can't help themselves. And you'll also sometimes see like they can't wait their turn on something. So when we look at that from a coaching perspective, I'm primarily looking at it from an executive
Yep.
functioning perspective, right? So if we think about executive functioning, I am typically looking at a person's, well, three main areas. It's planning, prioritizing, and activating, basically, right? So, and activating meaning being a self-starter, right? So making something happen. So if you break that down a little bit, now we're looking at, okay, what is my ability to do self-control? How do I control me and my actions? Then there's this thing called like selective attention. Do I know when to pay attention and when I don't need to pay attention? Do I know when I'm cued to pay attention, when I don't need to pay attention, right?
Yep.
Then there is like our working memory. So I think way back in one of our first conversations, we were talking about like you have your short-term memory, which is like that 15 to 30-second hold, and then the longer-term memory goes into the retention part of your brain. So the working memory is really that quick,
Yes.
the shorter memory version, right? And then there's the cognitive flexibility. So it's like, what is my ability to adapt? What
Mm-hmm.
is my ability to think creatively? Like, I'm trying to organize something, I'm blocked. Am I creative enough to kind of find my workarounds?
Mm-hmm.
And then, looking at different perspectives. So somebody with ADHD will have a perspective and they're not going to be able to move in and out of those perspectives. So they seem very narrow-minded, or are perceived as narrow-minded by other people if other people are criticizing them and they don't know what's going on, right?
Yes.
So I have this client. He is a wonderful young man. He is an ADHD teenager, and my sessions with him have to be much shorter very often during our session, he'll say, I gotta go change my shirt.
Yeah.
And that will just come out of the blue. And I'll be like, okay, go change your shirt. And then he'll come back and then he'll say, we'll be like together for 5 minutes. And then he'll say, I have to go load the dishwasher. And
Yeah.
then he'll quickly go do that. And I'll say, well, how was that? And he'll say, well, there weren't many dishes, but I loaded it anyway. So it's just, it doesn't, they're not, these are, very intelligent individuals usually, and they're also sensitive,
Yep.
there's a whole new thing around, acknowledging if I'm a sensitive person. So I'm more aware of the nuances of things that are going on around me.
Yep.
And anyway, so this young man is delightful, but I definitely have to work differently when I'm working with those kinds of clients. So, like, do you have anybody in your family that has ADHD?
Yep. My nephew, he's 14. And believe it
Yeah,
or not, I wish I could tell you specifically, but he has
yeah,
tried so many different medications. He's also in a special class in school. He's
right.
always acting out, always talking. He called me 21 times the other day when I was working because he wants to talk to me. And now he's going through puberty. So he has all these questions about girls and bellies. And we're trying to tell him, you could talk to your aunt, but but he doesn't understand. So you try telling him 21 calls. Yeah. So ironically, he just started another medication 3 days ago. And I just went to the house and he's like this. He's tired. He's lethargic. He was miserable. So Sunday, right? So then
Right.
Sunday night though, he couldn't sleep. So he goes to special summer school in the summer. He was up all night till 6 in the morning. My sister had to miss work. So the new medication now was making him tired during the day, up at night. But you have to go on it for 2 weeks. So it's another rough battle for her, for him, my whole family that has to handle him. We love him to
Yeah.
pieces, but it's not easy. In school now, they're talking about, well, should we continue on a program where he's not going to get a real high school diploma? Or do we put him in with all the kids that, and he's going to fail miserably because they're more
Yeah.
advanced? How does it all work? So my sister's like, yeah. So
Yeah.
I know
And
personally how it can affect
how it
someone.
can be. And I'm
Mhm.
curious, like maybe you could talk to your sister about this, but how does your nephew socially integrate? Is it easy for him to make friends? Does he have a lot of
Oh,
friends?
he is like the mayor. He'll go up and talk to anyone, which is he's overly sweetly friendly. He's like an old soul. He'll talk to anyone. So he doesn't have that part where he's shy. Oh, not at all. So I know every
Okay.
person's different with ADHD. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the things that we focus on a lot because what they've shown in research is that social connectivity is almost more critical to health and well-being than giving up smoking or obesity. So that social integration part really helps kids with ADHD to find their place, and it practices their brain in the short-term memory stuff because they have to think creatively, they have to think outside the box, and so when they can find their people, it's a magical place for them to be. So that kind of like takes me to like the next thing, because it's like, how do we coach to that, right? You're smiling.
I'm always smiling. Yep.
So like, how do we coach to this? It's like, so the most obvious part is the academic self-regulation, right? So this is when I'm sitting with a client and we will, instead of doing like one session a week, we'll do two short sessions a week. And we'll like sit at the beginning of the week and we'll planning and planning only. So it will be like, let's get our calendars out and let's like work it out, right? What's your goals for the week? We're only going to set these goals. Like, why are you not getting X, Y, and Z done? Well, because I get distracted because of this, that. Okay, how do we, then reduce the distractions so that you're not procrastinating? And then working with them on just, motivation, the memorizing, tracking their progress, all of that kind of stuff. So it's literally hands-on work. So when I'm sitting with like this particular young man, he will literally sit there with his piece of paper and we will literally go day by day by day with little check boxes and so on. And then the next day he'll text me and he'll say, I did box 1, 4, and 5. I didn't do 2 and 3. And then I'll say, okay, what's going on? And so that's kind of a critical part of helping them be successful. So that's the academic self-regulation part. The other part is often because they're criticized or they're not understood, their self-efficacy or their sense of their own competence goes down, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if they're not properly supported, then they start to feel bad about themselves. And part of helping them get their hands-on control over their daily activities helps them to feel more successful in those things, right? So,
Yeah.
and of course, let's talk about medicine management. That's the key thing. If the medicine is not managing, then all of that goes by the wayside. And so you can also help them build their sense of competence in themselves by making sure that their medicine is actually working for them, and how can they control making their medicine work for them. And especially as a teenager, you want them to be able to control that as much as possible and give them control. Often I see parents micromanaging or helicoptering their ADHD teenagers because they feel like they've got to control and do everything for them, instead of simplifying their lives and giving them what they can manage. And so their self-efficacy grows when they know that they can manage a certain thing. So with this particular young man, for example, he gets to volunteer 1 day a week at a place to keep his social integration going. He only, he's also in a special class, so they make sure that they don't have homework. They do the homework in class. They do the work in class. So setting their environment up in winnable situations gives them confidence in themselves and then control over their own lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's ideally what we're trying to get to, right? Is adults, even if they have ADHD, to be able to manage and control their own lives. So that's like, the top three prerequisites. And then the fourth one, of course, is to be part of school activities and with faculty and with peers and have friends and feel like they're accepted and feel like they're not being judged because they have this condition, that they
Mm-hmm.
have absolutely no control over. So then as a coach, and I say just as a coach for me, but I think as a parent as
Yeah.
well, the targeted skill building is critical. So of course you bring in mentors, you bring in tutors, you bring in coaches, you do what you need to do to build the targeted skill building with them, especially around that executive functioning stuff. But that helicopter thing, that I've got to control you thing, that's where there's a lot of downfall, with people feeling impatient. Like you're getting too distracted, you're taking too long. And
Yeah.
instead of simplifying, they're like, let me just do it for you so we can get it done. So I talk about being non-directive, to try very hard to be non-directive with your ADHD teenager. Rather simplify their lives and let them learn how to fail and succeed in their own way, so that they
Mm-hmm.
can build that self-efficacy, so that they can get that independence feeling going. Um, and in coaching, what we do is we don't ask closed-ended questions. We still ask the open-ended questions. So, how is it that you're not able to get up when your alarm goes off in the morning?
Yeah.
Well, you see, if I get up in the middle of the night and it's 3 o'clock, and then I go to the bathroom and I have water, and then I come back, then I just feel like I've got too much energy and I can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
Then let them problem solve that, instead of, well, I'm going to come in and make sure I wake you up every morning. It's so hard. I get it. It's much easier said than done, but I would rather recommend that us, as the adults in their lives, simplify and give them more success than the other way around. Then the other part is flexibility to coaching. So in other words, what I will typically recommend to my parents there is that they be able to text me whenever they need to.
Mm-hmm.
or the parents text me whenever they need to. And instead of having all these longer sessions, to rather have, like, even if it's 5-10 minute sessions a week or whatever, but to really be flexible based on, like in the case of your nephew, if it's been a bad day and he's
Yep.
tired versus he's hyperactive, etc., right? And then the other part is the increased access to coaching. So it's like smaller, more frequent sessions, but you need a lot more hands-on with the support system that you have around you. And when you have those, so they've shown statistically that when you have those four things: targeted skill building, a non-directive approach, flexible, and the increased access to coaching, whatever that looks like, their GPA will grow almost by double by the end of the school year. So there is a huge amount of success if there's consistency in the strategy around those four things.
Wow.
So get the medicine right, get those four things done, and then what they've shown is that the GPA, let's say it's a 0.2 GPA increase per semester and a 0.4 increase in GPA for each additional hour. So think about that.
Wow.
Yeah, and they've showed that coaching is the only one that has statistically shown an increase in GPA by doubling because of those strategies.
Yeah, but like
So
for example, I would love to have my nephew coach with you, but he can't sit in front of the computer like this. He would
right,
be all over. He would be, and he
yep.
would want to talk to you about girls' bellies. How do you as a coach attack that? I mean, there's no guarantee that every
Mhm.
person can sit and do this, but I bet you say opposite, you could do it, right?
Well, like I don't let them feel like they have to sit. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they'll just be on the phone and I'll be walking with them as we're as we're, so there won't be any maybe face to face. I'll just literally be with my phone and like they're doing their thing as they're walking, or that we'll be on Zoom, but I won't ever see them because they're all over the place doing their thing. But we're having conversation. We're at least able to like talk. In this particular case, when we talk, his mom had bought him a big whiteboard, and then he gets to just be by the whiteboard while we work and do stuff. So then he can get distracted with the colors and the stuff, and then put music on or whatever. And so it's the consistency of it, not necessarily the intensity of it.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
it
Right?
does. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
and of course you do have it on the spectrum, right? You have kids that definitely need to be in person with somebody versus some who can, do versions of a virtual kind of thing. Yeah, but that was a good point. I'm glad you made that point.
Oh, thank you so much. So it's interesting that there's help. And I did tell my sister, like, maybe he needs a tutor. I don't know, because he can't focus in school. And then the teacher was allowing my sister to help him and realizing, oh, he can pass the test because he was failing, but because he can't do it himself, he doesn't have that. So she would like videotape him at home doing it in his own space and to prove
Yeah.
to the teacher, look, he's able to do it. In class, he can't. It's the environment. It's, so it's now what are some of the questions you want me to ask my sister again?
So how flexible, like how much flexibility is there for him to be able to do, like you said, can we video it at home and then show it at school? Like there needs to be flexibility around his tasks. How much access does he have to the same person, right? Whether the teacher, the coach, whatever, does he have access to somebody on a regular basis? And is it an is she like directing him in a non-directive way, like do it like this? Is like not necessarily going to work. It's how do you want to do it? How do you want to do it to get this done? Right. So, and then all of that, planning him out. So let him be in control of how he wants to plan it out. And, I don't know your nephew, but those are the visuals, right? So it's kind of like,
Maybe I can get my sister to call in next time we're on. And if not,
yeah,
yeah, because she works part-time at the school. She's actually working at a school now as an aide
hey,
assistant. But yeah, can't hurt to have a conversation with her. And
that would be
it'd be
great.
interesting for the listeners, I think, to get a perspective from a mother who's suffering like this and
Yeah.
to learn ways they can cope, learn ways that you could help. Yeah, that wouldn't be a bad idea.
I'm up for it if she is and if you are. I think that would be really good.
All
Yeah.
right, I'm going to talk to her about it. Are we on next week, the same time, same place?
I believe we are.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm going to find out, see where to schedule this, but it wouldn't be a bad thing. It'd be easier, I think, for
Yeah.
you to ask her the questions and,
Exactly.
I'm a third party. I'm going to say it wrong, and then, but it'd be interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to her.
Okay.
Yeah, she'll be over later. So, Lisa Lane, thank you. And or even the day you come out in person when we meet, we can meet her then. Which, by the way, I don't know when we're doing. I'm waiting to see you in person.
I'm waiting for somebody to tell me the schedule. So
And what is your availability, Mike? I know you're busy and you don't live so
I'm
super close, but
I believe we were talking about like over the weekend. So
yes, the
like a
weekend's fine.
Friday, Saturday. So we just need to let
All
Ash
right.
do the coordinating.
Perfect. Looking forward to it, Liezel. Thank you so much.
All right.
And again, we'll touch base later. In the meantime, remind us how we can reach out to you.
Yes, at www.myteenlifecoach.com. You can also call me at 770-235-8202.
And also myteenlifecoach.com on social media.
Absolutely. Yes, I always forget. And my
That's
social
okay.
media manager is actually
I
here.
always
She's
ask
like
and
showing me.
oh, that's great. Hi. Perfect. And it's My Teen Life Coach, or we find you under Liezel Lane? I always forget too.
Either or and or. Yes, both will come up.
All right. Thank you guys so much. Have a great day, and we'll talk soon.
Thanks.
And stay cool.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.